The laughter stopped first. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just an awkward silence that rippled across the studio, swallowing the sound of the audience mid-giggle. The red light above camera 2 kept blinking, a reminder that the world was still watching. Keanu Reeves sat there, still, unmoving, eyes fixed on the host across from him. Joy Behar shifted in her chair, that famous daytime grin faltering for just a second. The tension didn't scream. It whispered, a mug rattled against glass. A crew member froze behind the camera. No one understood what was happening. Not yet. A moment ago, the set of The View was everything it always was. Chatter, laughter, applause on cue. But in that second, it felt like something had cracked beneath the surface, like the energy in the room had shifted into something heavier, colder, alive. Keanu exhaled slowly. He didn't blink. He didn't frown. But his stillness said everything. You could see the weight in his jaw, the edge in his silence. Then he spoke. "You think that's funny?" His tone wasn't angry. It was something worse, disappointed. The kind of voice that made even the camera hesitate to zoom in. Joy tried to reply, but the words caught in her throat. The audience looked from her to Keanu, unsure whether to laugh or stay quiet. The laughter that once filled the room had turned into something else, a silence thick enough to make hearts pound. And as the red light blinked again, someone whispered off camera, "Cut the feed." But they didn't. Because what Keanu said next would silence more than a studio. It would silence the internet itself. Just minutes earlier, the energy in the studio had been electric, warm lights, playful jokes, and Joy Behar doing what she did best, keeping the conversation light, sharp and a little too personal. Keanu sat across from her, wearing that half smile the world had come to love, the kind that hides more than it reveals. The audience adored him, and why wouldn't they? He was Hollywood's quiet storm, gentle in tone, yet magnetic in presence. Joy leaned forward, tapping her cue cards with a grin. "You've got this. Mysterious reputation, Keanu. People say you barely speak unless it's scripted. Is that true? Or are you just saving your words for special occasions?" The crowd laughed. Keanu chuckled softly, adjusting the sleeve of his black jacket. He answered politely, his voice smooth and measured. "I just think silence has its own language." The laughter came again, light, harmless, the way talk shows always sound. But underneath it, something unspoken lingered. Joy wasn't done. She thrived on boundaries, testing them, crossing them, and smiling while doing it. To her, it was just good television. To him, it was a different story. The conversation drifted toward his career, then to his solitude, then, too easily, toward his losses. Each question edged closer to something deeper, darker. Behind the cameras, the producers watched the monitor with interest. They'd seen moments like this before, the tension that keeps viewers glued to screens. But this one felt different. Keanu's fingers tapped once against the table. His eyes didn't leave hers. Narration drops in, low and steady. It started with a question. Not cruel, not kind, just careless enough to hurt. And that's when everything began to shift. It happened so quickly. No one could pinpoint the exact second the mood changed. Joy Behar leaned back in her chair, flashing that signature smirk, the one that always meant she was about to cross a line. She shuffled her cue cards, eyes glinting under the studio lights. "You've been through so much loss, Keanu," she said casually. "Do you ever think that's why you play such lonely characters? Because you are one." The words landed like glass shattering on tile. A single cough echoed in the audience. Keanu didn't move. He didn't even look offended. But something invisible, shifted in the air. The laughter that usually followed Joy's jokes died before it could start. He smiled. Just barely, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. For a full 3 seconds, no one spoke. You could hear the faint buzz of the studio lights. Even Joy, always quick with her recovery line, hesitated. Keanu's voice broke the silence. Calm, controlled, heavy. "That's a cruel thing to say to someone who's buried people they love." Joy's expression froze. A few audience members gasped softly. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The red light above camera 1 blinked again, live. No cuts. No commercials. Narration slides in, low and reflective. It wasn't anger that changed the air in that room. It was pain, Old, deep, and tired of being turned into a punchline, Joy opened her mouth, searching for a defense, but her usual confidence faltered. Keanu didn't glare. He didn't threaten. He just looked at her. And in that silence, the entire set seemed to collapse inward. That was the spark. Small. Simple. But it lit a fire no one could put out. The silence was unbearable. You could almost feel the walls of the studio tighten, trapping everyone inside that fragile moment. Joy forced a nervous laugh, trying to lighten the air. "Come on, Keanu, I was just joking." "You know me, I tease everyone." But the audience didn't laugh this time. They could feel it too. Something in his eyes had changed. Keanu leaned forward, elbows on the table, his voice calm but cutting through the noise like glass. "Not everything's a joke, Joy. Some things deserve silence," her smile faltered. The hum of cameras filled the void. "You talk about people's lives like they're segments," he continued, steady and unshaken. "But when it's real, when it's grief, you don't get to turn that into applause." Joy tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of the producers behind the glass whispered, "Go to commercial," but nobody dared interrupt. "You want stories?" Keanu said softly. "Fine. Here's one. You lose someone you love, and the world keeps asking you to smile for the camera. Eventually you do, but it's not because you're okay. It's because people like you stop listening." A long pause followed. The kind that doesn't end with applause, just realization. Joy blinked, speechless. The cameras stayed rolling. Narration fades in, slow and cinematic. He didn't explode. He didn't yell. He simply told the truth, and it was louder than rage. Keanu leaned back, his face unreadable. Joy looked down at her notes, pretending to read. But her hands were shaking. The audience sat frozen. Even the lights seemed dimmer now, and then the show carried on, but nothing about it felt the same. When the cameras finally cut to commercial, the studio didn't breathe. It exhaled, slowly, unevenly. Producers rushed in, headsets buzzing, eyes darting between Keanu and Joy like referees after a knockout round. Joy was still gripping her cue cards, her smile glued in place, but it wasn't real anymore. You could see the tremor in her hands. Keanu sat in silence. No phone, no movement, no attempt to explain. Just that distant look, like he wasn't there anymore. Like he'd said what needed to be said, and the rest was just noise. A stagehand whispered, "We'll cut that part, right?" But another producer shook her head. "We can't. It's already live." The weight of that line hit the room. Some audience members looked uncomfortable, whispering to one another. Others stared at Keanu with something close to respect. The man who rarely spoke had just said everything. Joy, meanwhile, was trying to regain control, fixing her hair, forcing laughter when a crew member asked if she was okay. But behind the makeup and lights, the cracks were visible. "He embarrassed her," someone muttered. "No," another replied quietly. "He humbled her." When the cameras came back, the tone was different. The laughter was gone. Joy's voice trembled as she thanked the sponsors and moved to the next segment, an interview about movie soundtracks. But it felt hollow. Narration slides in. Sometimes the most uncomfortable moments aren't about who's right. They're about who's real. And in that studio, only one person was. Behind the curtain, Joy avoided eye contact. Keanu stood, thanked the crew politely, and walked out. No headlines, no drama. Just quiet dignity. But outside the studio, something was already beginning to stir. By the next morning, the internet was on fire. Clips from The View spread like wildfire across every platform. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, all flooded with one headline. Keanu Reeves shuts down. Joy Behar, live. The moment had been dissected from every angle, slowed down, replayed, analyzed frame by frame. Comment sections became battlefields. Some defended Joy, calling it a misunderstanding. Others called it the most authentic moment daytime TV has ever seen. But Keanu? He stayed silent. No statements, no PR spin. Just silence. The same silence that had spoken louder than any headline could. A fan tweet went viral. That's the thing about Keanu. He doesn't perform emotions. He feels them. Meanwhile, The View's production team was in chaos. Executives debated whether to remove the segment. Ratings spiked overnight, but so did complaints. Sponsors asked for damage control. Joy's publicist urged her to issue an apology, but every draft sounded hollow. Behind the scenes, the crew whispered about what really happened after cameras cut. "He didn't storm out," one said. "He just thanked everyone and left." That image spread. Keanu walking quietly through the studio doors, coat over his arm, refusing to make a scene. It became a symbol of grace under fire, of truth unshaken. Narration returns, soft but piercing, in a world obsessed with being seen. He reminded everyone what it means to simply be. Montage visuals, flashing comment threads, news anchors debating tone, and one final shot of Keanu disappearing into a crowd, unnoticed yet unforgettable. The confrontation had ended, but its echo was only beginning to grow. Days passed, but the conversation didn't fade. It evolved. Clips of that moment began circulating not as gossip, but as something deeper. Commentators called it a rare glimpse of honesty in a world built on pretense. Podcasts replayed his words. Fans quoted him in captions, edits, and tribute reels. But Keanu? He didn't engage. No interviews, no clarifications. Just a quiet presence, going about his life, like none of it had ever happened. And somehow that silence spoke louder than any defense ever could. Joy eventually returned to the show, smiling again. But it wasn't quite the same. There was hesitation now, a softness that wasn't there before. During one episode, she even paused mid-joke and said quietly, "Sometimes words hit harder than we think." It wasn't an apology, but it was close enough. The audience noticed. So did the world. Narration fades in, soft and reflective. He didn't win an argument. He reminded everyone watching that empathy still matters, even on live television. Cinematic music swells, gentle piano, low strings, cut to Keanu walking through a crowd, a faint smile, sunglasses on. Someone calls his name, but he just waves, keeps walking. No bitterness, no pride, just peace. Final narration line, the voice calm, certain. In a world where outrage is currency, he chose silence, and silence became his loudest truth. The screen fades to black. Then a single line appears in white text. In a world built on applause, silence can still speak louder. A heartbeat sound echoes once, fade out completely, leaving only stillness. The screen stays black for a moment. That quiet, cinematic pause where the viewer is still holding their breath. Then the voice returns. Soft, deliberate, reflective. Maybe it wasn't about who was right or wrong that day. Maybe it was about remembering that behind every headline, every joke, every camera, there's a person. A slow heartbeat fades in under the words. Steady, human. Keanu didn't raise his voice. He didn't fight for attention. He just spoke truth, and let silence do the rest. The visuals flicker between online comments, still frames of Keanu leaving the studio, and the glowing red on-air sign slowly dimming out. If this moment made you stop, even for a second, and feel something, then that's the story worth remembering. The tone shifts to invitation, not demand. So tell me, what would you have done in his place? Text fades in. In a world that rewards noise, choose truth. Then one last heartbeat. Silence. No like and subscribe. Just a story that lingers long after the screen fades to black.